Welcome back. We continue with our conversations here at the Transnet podcast series. We're on the sidelines of day 2 of the Investing in Africa Mining in Durban, and this is where critical conversations are taking place regarding mining as a key contributor to the African continent and its economic growth. But of course, understanding that logistics also plays a significant part in that, and this is where Transnet has a sweet spot in terms of its growth and development. Transnet, as we know, has significant opportunities to help various miners export their materials outside of the country. And right across the spectrum, we have been witnessing that there's been an ongoing level of investment, shift in strategy as well to make sure that we are aligned. We have touched base in terms of the strategic objectives, looked at the allocation of capital to make sure that from the goals and objectives that are set, there's sustainable outcomes. But we're digging deeper into the operations. And for that, we joined by the managing executive for the North Corridor, that's at the port of Richards Bay, Mr. Theo Johnson. Dr. Johnson, so good to have you.
Hi, Kukulethu. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm not as busy as you, because if we take a look at the operations that you take care of, oh boy, has it been busy. And maybe we just need to understand the importance and the context of the North Corridor, especially the role and function that it plays for the coal mining industry.
No, thanks, and good day to everybody that's listening. Look, the North Corridor firstly spans from Lipalale down to Richards Bay. I always say we're probably the one corridor that traverses through the majority of the provinces in the country.
Yep.
Starting from Limpopo to Northwest, to Gauteng, to Mpumalanga, and then to KZN. Flagship, it's a heavy haul line, starting from Ogies down to Richards Bay. And when you look at its contribution to Transnet, out of the 170 million ton recovery target for TFR, the North Corridor is 67.7 million tons. And if you look at it, that is, a significant contribution towards the 170 million ton target as per our recovery plan. So we run commodities, of course, the export coal down to RBCT. We run chrome down to Richards Bay. We also do coal to inland terminals like Eskom and other, mining houses that utilize the coal to produce other commodities like timber, etc. So quite a vast span of operations that we conduct in the North Corridor.
Definitely. And as you say, this is really critical because it speaks to a wide array of key stakeholders who are here at the mining in Durban, many of whom I can imagine have been yearning for your attentions and solutions that you've brought to the fore. And maybe that's also what we need to recognize. Take us through some of the aspects that have been brought as solutions to manage the concerns around safety and maintenance specific to the North Corridor. Because just over a year or two ago, things were very different, but there have been significant changes that have been brought about. Add more detail to us.
Look, when we started the journey to recover in the corridor, we recognized that we cannot only look at the volumes. We have to first look at our people and motivate them to enjoy coming to work again and to enjoy doing what they do. As remember, the team in the North Corridor is the same team in 2018 that delivered record performances. Majority of them are still there. So it's to reinvigor the teams, but most importantly, look at the safety aspect. If you look at how we started last year, we had a very bad incident in Richards Bay at Elubana, where we had a collision, and we thank God that the crews were safe, but damage to our infrastructure, cost and loss of volumes, not only for the corridor, for TFR, for Transnet, and for SA Inc., because we closed the line, for about 5 to 6 days.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to rehabilitate. So safety is a key for us. And we've put together some building blocks with the teams to make sure that when we go out into the operations, we make sure that before we step onto that footplate of a locomotive, that the track is safe, it's in a condition that the driver will be able to traverse safely and make it to the end of the journey. Because that for us is key. The more trains run safely on the network, the more volumes we can make. But when there's a disaster on the line, you could just come to a standstill, and that just impacts everyone.
Exactly. You play a very important role, right? Because we've spoken to a few of your colleagues who not only take care of trim, infrastructure maintenance for Transnet Freight Rail, but also TFR, and of course a few of your colleagues who sit within TPT and the Port Network Authority. And what we're finding is that you sit in the interesting interlink, I guess, of it all, how the freight rail connects to the port and how these two worlds essentially merge. And we've witnessed that there's a lot of changes that are taking place both within TPT and of course within freight rail. I'm keen to understand how all of these shifts and adaptations actually impact your operations on the North Corridor. What are the positive prospects that we can anticipate?
Look, I think one has to, firstly acknowledge the fact that we are an evolving organization. You have to adapt as you go along. So our interface with our ports is very critical because we are the glue that binds everybody together. Without rail operations efficiently going to our ports, we don't export enough products. So port and rail interface is quite critical. Our work we are doing with TPT in Richards Bay, trying to expand the volumes of chrome and coal, is beginning to bear fruit. We have increased the number of trains going into MPT on the coal sites. We've got a 3-phased project on the coal with MPT. We started with 14 trains of coal. We moved up to 21 trains. We now, working with TPT to try and get to 28 trains of coal per week going into MPT. And this also assists us in reducing the number of road vehicles that traverse to Richards Bay, because majority of them are carrying coal. And the more volumes we put on rail, we want to see a reduction in terms of the road trucks that are going into the town of Richards Bay. So quite critical that we foster and continue the relationship with our sister ODs,
yes,
with RBCT, so that our interfaces can deliver the results that we want to see. I just want to touch on the RBCT collaboration that we are doing, quite critical work. We collaborated on a number of projects. Security was one of them. We are still collaborating with that industry in terms of securing the North Corridor. We collaborated on the locomotive space, the batteries, the compressors. So you can see that working together with our stakeholders, collaborating to achieve a positive outcome, displays itself in the volumes that we deliver. If you look at RBCT, they've announced that they achieved a 10% a year-on-year increase in terms of volumes.
Yes.
And key to that is collaboration.
Yeah.
Private sector, Transnet getting together and working together for the positive outcome of the country. And I think for us, that is a flagship collaborating effort between the private sector and ourselves as Transnet.
I'm glad you mentioned this because, number one, you're right. There's been a lot of, hesitation in terms of this active participation to bring in more partners and make it competitive. But also, it's very important as well that your customers understand how this does benefit them. We at the mining indaba, we see some of the coal suppliers here. I'm sure they're always knocking on your door to say, what can we do to actually make this better, Dr. Johnson? So I'm hoping that you can give us more details here, specifically on the positive outcomes it will have specific to the mining community, but also the South African economy overall, just in terms of the targets we have for volumes that we can move.
No, absolutely. I think if you look at where we come from, it's always good to look at where you're going, but take a step back. If you look at last year, what we delivered as a North Corridor, we did just above 56 million tons as a total corridor. And for us, that was a period where we wanted to stabilize. We got in as a team and we said, what are those key levers that we need to pull to stabilize our operations? Stabilizing the network, reducing the manual authorizations that are there, and of course, looking at some of the locomotive issues that we had on the line. If you look where we are this time, vis-a-vis, last year, we delivered about currently close to 5 million tons more than what we've delivered this time last year. And for us, that is a big achievement. If you look where we are on export coal, last year, we delivered about 48 million tons. We're forecasting this year to deliver 53 million tons plus. And for us, that is a movement in the right direction.
Yep.
Because
you're saying that the targets are attainable, right?
Correct. The targets are there. I think our recovery plan, when we set it out with the leadership of the business, we said, what is it that is realistically doable that we can focus on and put in those incremental building blocks that are going to get us there? And a lot of the work that we've done over the year is to put those building blocks. Now it's time to accelerate it, and we are in our last quarter of the financial year. And we're revving ourselves up with the teams to really try and push as maximum volumes as we can. And of course, preparing for next financial year. The way forward now, for the North Core, we really, as a corridor, want to get beyond the 65 million tons annualized number and build the building blocks towards 70 million tons as a corridor. For export coal, we want to get to 60 million tons. That's our drive current. We need to get export coal to deliver above 60 million.
And this is with the collaborative efforts of key players in the private sector.
Correct. And this is with us working with industry. I mean, we did the line assessment now, which was an independent line assessment, told us the real issues that we need to focus on. And I think working with the industry, 60 million tons is doable next year. We've got no doubt that the efforts that we've put in to really get us beyond 60 million tons, I think we are capable. I think we've got the right teams to do it. And ours is to just continue to motivate our people so that they can deliver on the targets.
100%. Speaking of motivation, one thing we know for sure is that good things do take time, especially within the mammoth task of the recovery plan that's being implemented by the various ODs of Transnet. With these guidelines, what should our expectations be in terms of the shift? You've mentioned tonnage, 60 million, which is what we're looking forward to next year. But in terms of the processes, the partnerships of private sector participation on board, and even the outcomes for many of the miners who actively are anticipating the recovery of the North Corridor, how should we acclimatize to the timelines?
Look, I think for us, it's we monitor our weekly rate, and how we deliver the volumes, and that gives us a sort of benchmark in terms of where we are. If you look at October and November last year, it gave us a good indication of the type of volumes that we can deliver as a corridor. Export coal touching the 60 million ton tempos on a regular basis was a motivation for us. So we want to get back to that. And the building blocks to get there obviously is, collaborating with industry on the issues surrounding locomotive spares. That for us is critical. Collaborating with the industry on security. That for us is critical. The one thing that, apart from safety incidents that bring a stop to the operations, is the issue of theft and vandalism. It's a country problem that we need to sort out. Working together with the NLCC, we've got our security work stream that is looking at various aspects of how not only do we look at arresting the runners, but also the kingpins that are bringing us to a standstill.
Yeah.
So we need to continue that work with the law enforcement agencies. We need to collaborate with the industry on making sure that we get the infrastructure back to the 81 million ton nameplate capacity, because currently we are operating at a reduced nameplate on the coal line. We need to work to get that back to the 81 million tons, so that as we, bring in the reforms, we must make sure that we optimally utilize the line for what it was designed for. Currently, we are not yet there. And our objective over the next 12 to 24 months is really a focus on making sure that the line comes back to its nameplate capacity.
Got you. Lots of effort that's certainly being put in, but ultimately sounds like you have a good story to tell. So all the best going forward in making this come to fruition.
Thank you, I just want to also thank our teams on the line and just want to motivate them further to keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you. That is Theo Johnson, who joins us as the Managing Executive for the North Corridor, giving us some insight into the shifts, the changes, the solutions that have been implemented, and most importantly, how it does culminate into making active use of our infrastructure, protecting it as well, and contributing favorably to the mining sector.